Hey folks, happy Sunday and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. This is review number 18. I'm Nick, and today we're going to be reviewing Jack Daniel's Unaged Tennessee Rye, a part of a little mini-series that we have going on with Jack Daniel's. We're towards the tail end. We only got two more left, this review and review 19, which will be the Jack Daniel's Rested Rye, which I have here for you. They don't have a finished, matured rye whiskey just yet, so we don't have that, but we'll be looking for that probably in the next few years or so, depending on how long they decide to mature it. So, the Jack Daniel's Unaged Rye is been pretty difficult, I think, for people to find. It's mostly only been sold in the United States and various states throughout the country, but I'm not sure as to how far it's extended overseas. Some of the prices I was looking around are just astronomical. Some of the online retailers are willing to ship it to other countries, but for upwards of $230, and then after taxes I heard upwards of $400, which is just crazy. But we won't get into the whole taxation thing. So there's no scoreboard here today because we're just going to go over the, I guess, the journey, the beginning of the journey of Jack Daniel's new shake-up in the grain recipe to the whiskey, which hasn't occurred in over 100 years. So this is kind of a really interesting point as the whiskey community, I guess, continues to evolve and looking for new and innovative things. I think it's a great move on, Brown-Forman Jack Daniel's to change it up a little bit. And so this Unaged Rye, this is batch number 1. I believe there's a second batch out there. Made in Tennessee, distillers own Unaged Tennessee Rye. And I just had the thought the other day, I was thinking about doing this review today, and I just thought it was interesting that they had put Tennessee Rye on there, and I was wondering, with all the legislation and court proceedings going around about the naming and labeling of Tennessee whiskey and what sort of defines it, as we talked about with the Lincoln County mellowing process. I'm wondering if the final spirit will be mellowed through the 10-foot tall vat of charcoal that Jack Daniel's traditional whiskey is. So just it, it probably will, but I wonder if they will kind of branch out further to be strictly defined, in the United States labeling as a Tennessee Rye, just like their Tennessee whiskey. So just something interesting to look out for. So this bottle is a nice bottle. It's the same, basically I think it's the same as the single barrel that you can kind of see up there. Same kind of bottling. Bottled at 40% ABV, so this has been filtered down a little bit. It's not purely off of the stills during distillation. It has been watered down, for bottling at 80 proof. So this isn't the traditional white dog that would come straight off the still. So if you're expecting that, you're not going to find it with this. It's got the unique bottle number on it, 1417Q for those of you playing along at home. So let's get into it. I've got the Capita nosing glass out today, just because I really want to get into the nose and the flavors that we get in here, so I don't want to chance any of that escaping out. So, as you can see, it's completely clear because it hasn't been aged in barrels, the new American oak charred barrels, which imparts not only the flavor, but coloring, as we know. So, let's go in for the nose. Now, the first thing that I get, and it comes as a shock to most people, because you would think that a high rye content whiskey would be kind of the spicier sort of whiskey, but it's not. That's not what it comes off of as, and So what I get is sort of, if you've ever smelled some like overripe apples, if you've gone to a traditional cider mill that is pressing apples for cider, that's kind of the scent that you get here. That fruitier note. There's definitely some yeasty smell to it, but the rye characteristic, the spice that you might expect, any kick is not there. And if you go online to jackdaniels.com, you can watch a little mini clip with Jeff Arnett, the master distiller, and he talks about how when rye becomes the dominant grain in the mash bill, that it kind of gives off this fruitier nose and taste. So let's go in for the taste. Now, it definitely is reminiscent of a lot of fruitier notes, like really light fruits, and like I said, the overripe apple, it's definitely there. There's a little hint of a little spice on the front of the palate, but that's about it for that. There's definitely the predominance of the fruit in there, lighter fruits, like I said, overripe. And this is interesting because it shows us what flavors are composed of basically from the grains without any of the influence of the oak barrels, which we know imparts a lot of the smokier wood, oak, vanilla, cinnamon, those kind of notes to it. So it really is an interesting kind of discovery into what the grain provides. Now, we talked about before the traditional Jack Daniels recipe contains more corn and malted barley than it does rye. So this is still keeping those three components, but just upping the rye content to over 51%, so that it can be called a rye whiskey. Now, there's sort of like a sour note, which goes along with the overripe apple, which I talked about, but definitely sort of a yeast sense to it, a little bit of bitter sourness, if you will. There's a lot of like grassier notes to it, kind of this earthly palate coinciding with the fruit. On the palate, it's clean, it's quick, it's flavorful though. It doesn't leave a bitter taste in the mouth. It still kind of gets more diluted sense of the fruitier notes. But I think I can see why when they first were experimenting with this, that they decided to bottle the unaged rye after the tasters had tested it coming off of the stills, because it is pretty unique. I actually don't mind it. I could imagine myself just kind of like sipping that occasionally, like summertime, because it's lighter. Like I said, it's crisp, clean, concise. That's basically all there's to it. It's quick. So it'll be interesting next week to see what the rested rye, a little bit of maturation in the barrels does to it. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, sort of a lemon rind note coming into it. But like I said, on the whole, it's a really great kind of exploration into what the grains impart into the whiskey before it's matured. Not going to be a score for this because we're just exploring this right now. We're not trying to. If there was something to really compare it to, and I guess there's some other things out there that I probably could compare it to, like I think Jim Beam might have something similar to this. But basically, those are trying to give you the sense, if you will, of moonshine, which is basically just a white dog coming off of the still before maturation and being legal. So there's that. But where this is just kind of, they're changing up the grain recipe, and this is bottled before maturation. So it's not really the same thing. So, like I said, not going to rate it, if you will. But that's it for episode number 18. Check in with us next week. Now, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but this week we should be having a new website up. It's going to have all the videos in there, all the social media links you want to follow. Make sure you comment, share your stories, your tastings. It's all about this larger whiskey community. And I love to hear everybody else's journey and experience and that sort of thing. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're just a beginner, if you're watching a video and just about to have your first glass of whiskey, or if you've been drinking whiskey for 25 plus years, anybody's input is welcome, and I definitely look forward to hearing those comments. So, catch us, obviously, YouTube. Videos are on there, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we got it all covered. So you'll be seeing on that straighttalkwhiskey.com. And yeah, so have a great rest of the week. As always, please drink responsibly, and see you next week.